On February 4, 1992, Chávez led an attempted coup against the government. He was imprisoned for 2 years and then launched a political campaign that led to his victory in the 1998 presidential election. He immediately pushed for convening a constituent assembly that drafted the current constitution and was in power for 14 years. During that time, the opposition denounced persecution, and the United States imposed sanctions. In 2002, he survived a failed coup d'état and reportedly died in Caracas on March 5, 2013. Hugo Rafael Chávez Frias, peasant boy, youthful baseball player, young soldier, rebel, determined and loving leader, the light of peoples and revolutions. Chávez married twice. He first wed Nancy Colmenares, d. 2022, a woman from a poor family in Chávez's hometown of Sabaneta. Chávez and Colmenares remained married for 18 years, during which time they had 3 children, Rosa Virginia, Maria Gabriela, and Hugo Rafael, the last of whom suffers from behavioral problems. The couple separated soon after Chávez's 1992 coup attempt. During his first marriage, Chávez had an affair with historian Herma Marxman. Their relationship lasted 9 years. Chávez's second wife was journalist Marisabel Rodriguez de Chávez, from whom he separated in 2002 and divorced in 2004. Through that marriage, Chávez had another daughter, Rosines. Both Maria and Rosa had children. When Chávez was released from prison, he initiated affairs with women that had been his followers. Allegations were also made that Chávez was a womanizer throughout both his marriages, having encounters with actresses, journalists, ministers, and ministers' daughters. The allegations remained unproven and are contradicted by statements provided by other figures close to him, though one retired aide shared that while Chávez was married to Marisabel and afterward, he participated in liaisons with women and gave them gifts, with some rumors among his aides stating that some of the women bore children from Chávez. Those who were very close to Chávez felt that he had bipolar disorder. Salvador Navarrete, a physician that treated Chávez during his first years in the presidency, believed that Chávez was bipolar. In 2010, Alberto Moller Rojas, then vice president of Chávez's party, PSUV, stated that Chávez had a tendency toward cyclothymia, mood swings that range from moments of extreme euphoria to moments of despondence. A different explanation was that such behavior was a tactic used by Chávez in order to attack opponents and polarize. Chávez was a Catholic. He intended at one time to become a priest. He saw his socialist policies as having roots in the teachings of Jesus Christ, liberation theology, and he publicly used the slogan of "Christ is with the revolution." Although he traditionally kept his own faith a private matter, Chávez over the course of his presidency became increasingly open to discussing his religious views, stating that he interpreted Jesus as a communist. He was, in general, a liberal Catholic, some of whose declarations were disturbing to the religious community of his country. In 2008, he said that an afterlife does not exist. He also believed in Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, stating that it is a lie that God created man from the ground. He cursed the state of Israel, and he had some disputes with both the Venezuelan Catholic clergy and Protestant groups like the New Tribes Mission, whose evangelical leader he condemned to hell. In addition, he showed syncretistic practices such as the worship of the Venezuelan goddess Maria Lionza. In his last years, after he discovered he had cancer, Chávez became more attached to the Catholic Church. On June 30, 2011, Chávez revealed in a televised address from Havana, Cuba, that he was recovering from 2 operations in Cuba, including an operation to remove an abscess tumor with cancerous cells in the pelvic region. During the speech, he was noticeably thinner and paler and had a serious and at times sad expression, and stated that he regretted his lack of medical checkups. Analysts theorized that he was suffering from colorectal cancer. He returned to Venezuela from Cuba on July 4, but on July 17, 2011, he returned to Cuba for further cancer treatments. At that time, Some powers were delegated to cabinet ministers, but he resisted requests by the opposition to give up all powers during his absence. Chávez gave a public appearance on July 28, 2011, his 57th birthday, in which he stated that his health troubles had led him to radically reorient his life towards a more diverse, more reflective, and multifaceted outlook, and he went on to call on the middle classes and the private sector to get more involved in his Bolivarian revolution, something he saw as vital to its success. In August, Chávez announced that his government would nationalize Venezuela's gold industry, taking it over from Russian-controlled company Rusaro, while at the same time also moving the country's gold stocks, which were largely stored in Western banks, to banks in allied countries such as Russia, China, and Brazil. On July 9, 2012, Chávez declared himself fully recovered from cancer just 3 months before the 2012 Venezuelan presidential election, which he won, securing a 4th term as president. In November 2012, Chávez announced plans to travel to Cuba for more medical treatment for cancer. On December 8, 2012, Chávez announced he would undergo another operation after doctors in Cuba detected malignant cells. The operation took place on December 11, 2012. Chávez suffered complications from the surgery, including a respiratory tract infection as well as unexpected bleeding. It was announced on January 3, 2013, that Chávez had a severe lung infection that had caused respiratory failures following a strict treatment regimen for respiratory insufficiency. He was then breathing through a tracheal tube but was giving orders to ministers by writing them down. However, he was reported to have overcome the infection by January 26 and was then undergoing further treatment. On February 18, 2013, Chávez returned to Venezuela after 2 months of cancer treatment in Cuba. On March 1, 2013, after opposition leader Enrique Capriles accused the government of lying about Chávez's condition, Vice President Nicolás Maduro said that Chávez had been receiving chemotherapy in Venezuela following his surgery in Cuba and continues his battle for life. A mass, broadcast on live television, was held in the hospital in which Chávez was staying. On March 4, it was announced that Chávez's breathing problems had worsened and he was suffering a new, severe respiratory tract infection. Venezuela's hybrid regime, after Chávez's death, became more selectively accommodating on the inside and more explicitly repressive on the outside. This allowed the regime to survive, but not to thrive. Regime survival was purchased at the cost of policy immobilism. And policy immobilism has left Venezuela with the deepest economic crisis in Venezuela's history. Corrales and Penfold, Dragon in the Tropics, The Legacy of Hugo Chávez. On March 5, 2013, Vice President Nicolás Maduro announced on state television that Chávez had died in a military hospital in Caracas at 1625 Vet, 2055 UTC. Maduro said Chávez died after battling a tough illness for nearly 2 years. According to the head of Venezuela's presidential guard, Chávez died from a massive heart attack, and his cancer of the pelvic region was very advanced when he died. José Ornella said that near the end of his life Chávez couldn't speak, but he said it with his lips. No quiero morir, por favor no me dejen morir, I don't want to die. Please don't let me die, because he loved his country, he sacrificed himself for his country. Chávez is survived by 4 children and 4 grandchildren. Chávez was entombed in a marble sarcophagus at the mountain barracks in Caracas. After defecting from Venezuela, former bodyguard for Chávez, Limsy Salazar, stated that he died in December 2012, months before his death was officially announced. In July 2018, former Attorney General Luisa Ortega Diaz also said that Chávez had actually died in December 2012 and the announcement of his death was delayed for political reasons. In an interview cited by Venezuelan daily El Nacional, the former Chávez supporter said that the Venezuelan president died on December 28, but his closest allies decided to delay the announcement and never submitted the death certificate to the office of the Attorney General. The supposed delay in announcing Chávez's death raised concerns that laws signed in his name during that period were forged for political purposes. His death triggered a constitutional requirement that a presidential election be called within 30 days. Maduro, Chávez's vice president, was elected president on April 14, 2013. Under Chávez, press freedom declined while censorship in Venezuela increased. He used state-run bodies to silence the media and to disseminate Bolivarian propaganda. Other actions included pressuring media organizations to sell to those related to his government or to face closure. Human Rights Watch criticized Chávez for engaging in often discriminatory policies that have undercut journalists' freedom of expression. Reporters Without Borders criticized the Chávez administration for steadily silencing its critics. In 2004, Chávez used the National Commission of Telecommunications and the Social Responsibility in Radio, Television, and Electronic Media Law to officially censor media organizations. Chávez inaugurated Telesur in July 2005, a Pan-American news channel similar to Al Jazeera, which sought to challenge Latin American television news by Univision and the United States-based CNN en Español. In 2006, Chávez inaugurated a state-funded movie studio called Villa del Cine, English, Cinema City. In the group's 2009 Press Freedom Index, Reporters Without Borders noted that Venezuela is now among the region's worst press freedom offenders. Freedom House listed Venezuela's press as being not free in its 2011 map of press freedom, noting that the gradual erosion of press freedom in Venezuela continued in 2010. Chávez also had a Twitter account with more than 3,200,000 followers as of August 2012. A team of 200 people sorted through suggestions and comments sent via Twitter. Chávez said Twitter was another mechanism for contact with the public, to evaluate many things and to help many people, and that he saw Twitter as a weapon that also needs to be used by the revolution. The death of Hugo Chávez, 45th president of Venezuela, was announced by government officials to have been on March 5, 2013 at 16:25 VET, 20:55 UTC, in Caracas, Venezuela from cancer at the age of 58. His death triggered a presidential election which was constitutionally required to be called within 30 days. Chávez was first elected as president in 1998 and was re-elected in 2000, 2006 and finally in 2012. However, Chávez was unable to be sworn in for a fourth term after the 2012 election due to his illness. Chávez was diagnosed with cancer following the discovery of a mass in his pelvic region in June 2011. He traveled to Havana, Cuba, where he underwent a surgical operation to remove a malignant cancerous tissue mass about the size of a baseball from his waist. He underwent a second surgical operation in Venezuela 1 month later. Over the next 12 months, he followed a cycle of chemotherapy. The type of cancer Chávez was diagnosed with was never made public, which fueled speculation over his condition, with speculations from being prostate cancer to colon cancer among others. Following the presidential election in October 2012, where he was re-elected to a fourth term, he went to Cuba for more treatment and then returned to Venezuela and stayed at a Caracas Army hospital. According to 2 Venezuelan defectors, Chávez stayed at the hospital for a week, and died on December 28. However, the government stated that Chávez was still alive and provided successive announcements of his return and updates of his health, which were criticized by the country's opposition as the population were unaware of the exact state of his health as well as his location. The fact that the cancer had metastasized was not made public during the re-election campaign, and strongly denied by government officers. After the first lung infection, pneumonia, in the last stages of his life, Chávez was intubated nearing the end of December. His breathing worsened until his death was announced on March 5, 2013, almost 2 years after he was first diagnosed. The government stated that Chávez had died earlier that day. Vice President Nicolas Maduro announced Chávez's death on a mandatory television cadena, a decree forcing all broadcasters to relay state television programming. In an emotional eulogy, Maduro said, "Let there be no weakness, no violence. Let there be no hate. In our hearts there should only be one feeling, love." Maduro indicated that Chávez had died after battling a tough illness for nearly 2 years. He added that police and troops would be deployed across the country to guarantee the peace. The head of the Presidential Guard said Chávez died of a massive heart attack after great suffering and had inaudibly mouthed his desire to live. In an interview to the Associated Press, he said that Chávez could not speak, but he said with his lips, "I don't want to die. Please don't let me die." The BBC reported isolated incidents of violence following the announcement of Chávez's death. Although pro-Chávez supporters attacked and burned tents of students who had camped demanding more official information about Chávez's health, there were no reported injuries. Vice President Maduro indicated he had no doubt of foul play by the historical enemies of our fatherland behind Chávez's illness and death. Defense Minister Diego Merlo Bolivia said that the Bolivarian armed forces would be loyal to the Vice President and National Assembly and urged supporters and opposition to remain calm. After defecting from Venezuela, former bodyguard for Chávez, Limzy Salazar, stated that he died in December 2012, nearly 3 months before the March 5, 2013 date was officially announced. In July 2018, former Attorney General Luisa Ortega Diaz also said that Chávez had actually died in December 2012 and the announcement of his death was delayed for political reasons. In an interview cited by Venezuelan daily El Nacional, the former Chávez supporter said that the Venezuelan president died on December 28, 2012, but his closest allies decided to delay the announcement and never submitted the death certificate to the office of the Attorney General. The supposed delay in announcing Chávez's death raised concerns that laws signed in his name during that period were forged for political purposes. Thousands of people flooded the streets of the capital Caracas. Many cried and hugged in public shows of emotion. Women were weeping at Miraflores Palace. With a mixture of joy and sadness, Chávez supporters shared their impressions after him a last farewell. "That man emanates a force forward and his face says my people." People left work for the day upon hearing the news, shops and offices shut and cars and buses filled the streets. Opposition leader and opponent in the 2012 election, Enrique Capriles, called on the government to act in strict accordance with its constitutional duties. He also added his condolences to Chávez's family, saying, "We were adversaries, but never enemies." Acting President Nicolás Maduro said he believed Chávez was assassinated by Venezuela's historical enemies, widely assumed to mean the United States, and that a scientific commission would investigate this possibility. The U.S. State Department denied any American involvement in Chávez's death, calling the claim absurd. On the first anniversary of Chávez's death on March 6, 2014, tens of thousands of his supporters marched through cities across Venezuela. This was coupled with the 2014 Venezuelan protests featuring pro- and anti-government demonstrations. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon's office issued a statement expressing condolences. Reactions within the Americas by citizens occurred outside Venezuela's embassies in Honduras, El Salvador, Chile, and Ecuador. Secretary-General of Organization of American States José Miguel Insulza ordered the body's flags to be flown at half-mast and the convening of a special meeting of the Permanent Council in memory of Chávez. After announcing Hugo Chávez's death, Bolivian President Evo Morales broke down and cried on national television while paying tribute to Chávez. Morales then decreed 7 days of mourning in Bolivia after Chávez's death. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff, who had cancelled a scheduled trip to Argentina to meet President Kirchner, led a minute of silence in Brasilia. Rousseff decreed 3 days of mourning. Rousseff's predecessor, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, also expressed grief. Salvadorian President Mauricio Funes and Chilean President Sebastián Pinera both praised Chávez's strong character, and the Chilean government declared 3 days of national mourning for Chávez. The Cuban Council of State decreed 2 days of official mourning, from 6 a.m. on March 6 to midnight on March 7, and a third day of national mourning on March 8. The presidents of Dominican Republic, Haiti, Uruguay, and Ecuador all decreed 3 days of mourning for Chávez. Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega declared 7 days of mourning. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos, Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto lamented the death of Chávez. The Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a press release expressing condolences and our feeling of fraternity. Colombia ordered its 15 consulates in Venezuela temporarily closed to observe the days of mourning. Guyanese President Donald Raimoter and Guatemalan President Otto Pérez Molina regretted losing a friend. Raimoter and Honduran President Porfirio Lobo praised Chávez for his contribution to regional integration. The National Congress of Honduras addressed a minute of silence. Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica said that special arrangements would be made for an official tribute to Chávez. Uruguay announced that President José Mujica was in Argentina for a summit when Chávez died, but that he would fly to Caracas with Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner to attend the funeral. Argentina declared 3 days of mourning. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper offered his condolences. Former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien eulogized in a televised interview. Suggestions of American foul play, implying that Chávez had been poisoned or somehow infected with cancer, arguing a plot reminiscent to the Yasser Arafat death controversy and the attempts against Fidel Castro, were vehemently denied by the U.S. Department of State as absurd. In Miami, some Venezuelans joyfully celebrated Chávez's death, and were cautiously optimistic of new elections for Chávez's successor. An estimated 189,219 Venezuelans live in the United States, most of whom are anti-Chávez. United States President Barack Obama reaffirmed the support of the U.S. for the Venezuelan people and its interest in developing a constructive relationship with the Venezuelan government. Former President Jimmy Carter complimented Chávez's commitment to improving the lives of Venezuelans. According to a statement posted at the Carter Center website, Carter and his wife Rosalind came to know a man who expressed a vision to bring profound changes to his country to benefit especially those people who had felt neglected and marginalized. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, chairperson of the African Union Commission, conveyed her condolences to the family, government, and people of Venezuela. The organization observed a minute of silence at the AU headquarters on March 8 during the celebration of the International Women's Day. Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, Gambian President Yahya Jammeh, Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, Sahrawi Republic President Mohamed Abdelaziz, South African President Jacob Zuma, Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete, all expressed their sorrow and offered their deepest condolences. Jammeh proclaimed 2 national prayer days at Gambian mosques and churches for Chávez, on 8 and March 10, 2013. The Sahrawi government declared a day of national mourning. Afghanistan President Hamid Karzai, President of Armenia Serge Sargsyan, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, Chinese President Hu Jintao and General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party Xi Jinping, Deputy Director General of the Taiwanese Foreign Ministry Calvin Ho, and Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh issued statements of heartfelt condolences. Pakistan President Asif Ali Zardari and Prime Minister Raja Pervez Ashraf, President of the Palestinian National Authority Mahmoud Abbas, Turkmenistan President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow, as well as Vietnamese leaders, including Party General Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong, Prime Minister Nguyen Tan Dung, and National Assembly Chairman Nguyen Sin Hung, also expressed condolences. Some lauded Chávez's achievements. Memorial services were scheduled to be held in Ramallah and other cities in the West Bank, and senior Palestinian officials paid their respects at the Venezuelan embassy in Ramallah. In Gaza City, streets were decorated with Venezuelan flags and posters of Chávez. Hamas, leading the de facto government of the Gaza Strip, lauded Chávez as a great leader. The Syrian Arab news agency paid homage to Chávez for taking an honorable stance regarding the conspiracy against Syria. Iran declared a day of national mourning. French President François Hollande and British Foreign Secretary William Hague were saddened. Irish President Michael D. Higgins sent condolences, and Sinn Féin leader Gary Adams also paid tribute. Italian President Giorgio Napolitano said he felt painful. The Spanish government extended its condolences, as did Portuguese President Aníbal Cavaco Silva. Swedish Prime Minister Fredrik Reinfeldt stated that Chávez undeniably affected his country and the entire region and hoped for greater democracy and respect for human rights in Venezuela. Foreign Minister Carl Bildt criticized Chávez's policies, saying that he had plundered the oil wealth of his country. President of Russia Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev expressed their sincere condolences. Russia would send a delegation consisting of Rosneft President Igor Sakhin, Trade and Industry Minister Denis Manturov, Rostec CEO Sergei Kemezov, Federation Council Speaker Valentina Matviyenko and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Serbian President Tomislav Nikolic and Prime Minister Ivica Dačić sent condolences and lamented the loss of a friend. The Serbian cabinet also announced that Chávez would be posthumously honored with the Order of the Republic of Serbia. Belarus declared 3 days of mourning. In the Vatican, a condolence letter was read during a meeting of cardinals prior to the papal conclave, during the sede vacante. In the European Union, European Council President Herman Van Rompuy and European Commission President José Manuel Barroso said that they had received the news of Chávez's death with sadness. Australian Foreign Minister Bob Carr and New Zealand Prime Minister John Key expressed condolences to the Chávez family and the people of Venezuela. However, Key, who was on a diplomatic trip to Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and Brazil, did not attend the funeral although meetings had been postponed due to Latin American leaders attending, and was criticized by ex-Greens MP Keith Locke, Toby Manhire, and others. Foreign Minister Elias Jaw decreed 7 days of mourning for Chávez. Chávez's body was taken to the military academy in Caracas on March 6, 2013, accompanied by large numbers of supporters who joined the procession at the military parade grounds, the Heroes Avenue, and was left lying in state for the public to visit for 3 days. The state funeral was held in Caracas on March 8, 2013. Acting President Nicolas Maduro originally stated that Chávez's body would be embalmed and permanently displayed after the state funeral in a transparent sarcophagus at a military museum in the former site of the military academy in La Planicie Barracks at the 23 de Enero district west of the city proper. However, due to difficulties in finding an expert and the uncertainties of plastination in which the weather plays a substantial part, Maduro announced that the body would not be embalmed in time. Maduro extended national mourning from 4 to 11 days to coincide with the transportation of the body to the military museum, now Museum of the Revolution, at La Planicie Barracks, which was renamed Mountain Barracks as it was, not by accident, the place which Chávez captured and used as a command center in the brief coup of 1992, and where he uttered his famous words por ahora, for now, to the press. For the final arrangements a funeral service was arranged, with the casket leaving the military academy grounds in Fort Tushune on March 17, 2013 under full military honors including references to LTN. CNL. Chávez's home battalion, the Apure Braves 414th Armored Battalion, with the marching song Patria Querida, Fatherland Beloved, played in slow time, a 21-gun salute, and a military aviation, formerly Venezuelan Air Force, flyover by Sukhoi Su-30 fighters in a missing man formation. Government party militias in their light motorcycles followed the motorcade, itself surrounded by army mounted guards, with a large following of, mostly poor, citizens, with final arrival honors paid upon arrival at the mountain barracks. Bolivian President Evo Morales, Maduro, and Chávez's brother Adán and daughter Maria Gabriela each gave speeches before the flag folding and dedication ceremony. The national flag covering the casket was handed to Chávez's mother, Elena Frias de Chávez, on behalf of the armed forces and the nation. Argentinian President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner was amongst the first heads of state to arrive in Venezuela on Tuesday, March 5. She visited the chapel at the military hospital to pay her final respects on Thursday before returning home, citing health reasons. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff attended a wake on Thursday at the military academy before returning to Brazil on Friday morning. Former President Lula da Silva accompanied President Rousseff and departed before the funeral service. Former Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and his wife Aline attended the funeral, along with former Colombian Senator Piedad Córdoba, former Honduran President Manuel Zelaya, and former Paraguayan President Fernando Lugo. Other attendees included former U.S. Congressman William Delahunt, President of the Russian Rosneft oil company Igor Sakhin and CEO of Rostec Sergei Kemezov, Nikolai Lukashenko, son of the Belarusian President, Alexis Tsipras, the leader of Syriza in Greece, later Prime Minister of Greece, from Spain were Caio Lara and Willie Meyer Plite, MEP. Formula One driver Pastor Maldonado, American civil rights activist Jesse Jackson and actor Sean Penn also attended. Honor guards were provided by the cadets of the component service academies of the Venezuelan Bolivarian Military University and by personnel of the Presidential Honor Guard Brigade, among others. The Simon Bolivar Symphony Orchestra led by Gustavo Dudamel provided musical accompaniment during the state funeral services. Echoing strong national sentiment, the government elevated a proposal to the National Assembly, Parliament, for a statute amendment that would allow placing the late president's body near that of Simon Bolivar, the liberator and father of the country, in the national pantheon of Venezuela, a secular building housing the remains and/or cenotaphs to independence war heroes and former presidents. The statute, still unamended, requires that a number of years pass before any such moves. Chávez's remains were placed instead at a mausoleum, built in 99 days, at the now Revolution Museum, formerly Army Museum, at the Mountain Barracks, former site of the Military Academy in La Planicie Barracks. The mausoleum to Hugo Chávez consists of a granite sarcophagus atop a flat architectural composition of 4 leaves entitled Flower of the Four Elements by modernist architect Fruto, José Fructuoso, Vivas, 1928, National Architecture Prize and designer of the Venezuelan Pavilion at Hanover in 2000, and has a permanent ceremonial 4-man honor guard provided by the Presidential Honor Guard Brigade, which is changed every hour. A 19th-century cannon is fired every afternoon from the fort, marking the time of his death by a national militia gun crew. Both ceremonies are open to the public. The BBC quoted analysts as saying Chávez's death could alter the balance against the so-called pink tide in favor of centrist governments. It also suggested a possible economic impact to Venezuelan oil sales due to them being below market prices relative to some neighboring countries, especially in the Caribbean. America's Quarterly editor Christopher Sabatini suggested that the Chávez myth would outlive his achievements. Prior to his death, Venezuela's recognition of Abkhazia and South Ossetia were also highlighted as dependent on Chávez. Thank you for watching this video.